So an old white guy thinks he knows best and is slowly but surely killing off an entire civilization. A tale as old as time, I suppose. Feels just like home, to be honest. So it's up to you, Hollow, to venture across this medieval land, unraveling its lore and story, and if you don't like it, just travel back in time and change it. Yes, time travel. Did I f***ing stutter? On your journey, your quest is really just dethroning a family that's naming convention is almost as bad as the JoJo's. And after that, you have to make the most important decision of the entire universe, to either turn a light bulb on or off. Welcome to Dark Souls Remastered, a truly well-crafted game for about half the running time. Is that a giant mushroom? Dark Souls 1 is a flawed masterpiece. It's one of my favorite games of all time. Like, it's right up there with some of the greats. And as much as I would love to say I was an early adopter of the From Software games, but I actually knew nothing about Dark Souls or any of the other titles until the Prepare to Die edition came out on Xbox 360. And honestly, that was just because a YouTuber I followed at the time played this seemingly random game and it looked really good to me. So honestly, major props to old school YouTuber SSOHPKC for introducing me to this legendary title. So after looking at Elden Ring and the DLC expansion, I thought it would be really cool to dive back into the title that not only created a whole subgenre of games, but also redefined third-person sword fighters as a whole. And though this isn't the first title that the Chad Miyazaki directed, it is the one that really popped off and put him on his throne. So I want to discuss this title before possibly looking back at Demon Souls, and that's kind of where you guys come in. Let me know in the comments if you would like me to look at the rest of the Demon Soulsborne Kiro Ring series. There's gotta be an easy way to say that. Just any games from FromSoft, I guess. Let me know in the comment section. But this video will be looking at the remastered version of Dark Souls 1 that was released in 2018, as well, the original had a few issues. Glaring issues. Honestly, that game felt like it was held together with duct tape. This version is at least somewhat less buggy, especially in Blight Town, but there is some issues still. God, I hate these spinning skeletons. Okay, where did he go? But it's not just glitching through the map. Some of the hitboxes are funky to say the least, and game dev decisions that, well, should be considered war crimes. God, I hate this boss fight so much. Ah, come on! I honestly could have just cut this fight out of the entire game and it would have been 20% better. But like I said, the series didn't really pop off until some YouTubers and content creators made videos on Dark Souls because it was so quote-unquote difficult. Honestly, it wasn't. Well, maybe back in the day, but I kind of like to think the series have made us gamers a little bit better than we were. You know, maybe we finally started to get good, as going back to this game felt more like a tutorial to the standard Soulsborne formula we've come to love. And the only real issues with this game, and the only difficulty I can see, is some of the more limitations of the engine. So I'm going to be honest, dying 15 times to the Bed of Chaos, I don't think that's a skill issue. I think that's a dev issue. Nowadays, everyone is talking about Miyazaki's creations, but to be honest, the series didn't really go mainstream until Bloodborne. And I mean, let's be honest, that's a near perfect game. God, why can we not get a remaster? So this game does one thing absolutely flawlessly, and that's finally crafting the world and story to make it feel alive, but at the same time also given this sense of loneliness and isolation. The game will make you feel depressed, and I absolutely love it. So with that in mind, I want to ask the question, was Dark Souls 1 really that good? Or were we just scraping the bottom of the barrel for a decent action-adventure RPG back then? Let's take a look. Okay, so after building my beautiful hollow, yes, I'm going Dex again. I like to go to Thief class as well, because it means I get the Master Key without having to waste one of my gifts. So I can proceed to waste one of my gifts, getting the Witch Ring, just so I can get one dialogue box much later in the game. And we wake up in the Undead Asylum. Thanks to this Amazon delivery guy, we get the key to our cell and we can start cleansing the land of, well, everything. Unfortunately, our delivery guy took one too many piss bottle breaks and he gets fired, but he is generous enough to let us have a couple of them. This is an Estus flask, one of the most important items in the game. And now for every single Souls-like game, we will be referring to healing items as Estus flasks, same as with the in-game currency and XP being Souls. They change this in like every game, and I still call them these out of habit. That is set in stone. That is like ingrained into my DNA at this point. Next is the bonfires. These are little checkpoints throughout the world. They will refill your Estus flasks and can be used to level up and repair equipment. But when you sit down, they will reset all enemies in the area, even the ones that you killed. Moving ahead, we find our first boss, which is the Asylum Demon. Thankfully, I'm more of a butt man, so this isn't much of an issue. You'll find this tends to be the meta for most enemies in Dark Souls 1. Just to dodge the attacks, get behind them and go for that booty. So I guess we can talk about the combat. It's a bit janky. The combat is stiffer than Uncle Daryl at the family barbecue, but the first thing to get used to is that whenever you input a button command, you are strapped in. You cannot cancel out of these, so please do not spam the dodge roll or attack, because you will go through them the same amount of times you press the button. Trust me, spamming will hurt you more than it will help you. We defeat Boogie 2988 and we escape the asylum and head to Lordran. Now, this is one of my favorite things about the Dark Souls franchise. It rewards players for diving back into the game again and again. I was on autopilot, and considering I haven't played this game in years, the first thing I did was go straight down to Anor Londo to get my first Firekeeper soul. This is a late game area. We grab the item and we are now able to get more healing from our Estus flasks. After this, I went straight to the catacombs, trying my best to not even brush up against the enemies, because these guys will one-tap me straight away. The reason I'm doing this is because if we go through here very quickly and jump off on this bridge, we can get probably one of the best dex bleed weapons in the game. And if you guys know me, you know it's a scythe. Alright, so we're pretty geared up already, so going through the Undead Burg is where you'll get the feel of how these areas are going to be moving forward. And honestly, I get chills every time this dragon appears. It's so fucking cool, man. On your way, there's a merchant here that really likes his bucket. Hey man, no judgment, you do you. Though he's fun to Photoshop. Now, most players will kill this guy to acquire a katana, which is a pretty good dex weapon. I didn't use this, but I still killed him for it. But I thought I'd mention it. This guy has probably died the most out of all the NPCs, except Oscar. It's pretty smooth sailing here. There is a Black Knight here that is very tough, but killing them will grant you a bunch of souls and you can get some pretty sweet weapons out of these guys. They don't respawn, so it's kind of luck of the draw until much later on in the game. But I did get lucky and get the Black Knight shield, which is honestly one of the best shields. Now, before we get to the boss, there is a separate door that we can use the master key on. Heading down here will take us to Havel. Now, he is again another late game enemy and is very tough. He will most likely take you out in one shot if he hits you with his silly banana sword. But with patience and a lot of backstabs, you can get the second best ring in the game, Havel's ring. This will greatly increase your equip load, so most of the armor you wear now will not make you fat roll. Alright then, it's time for the boss. I say, nope. Now, some people say the Taurus Demon is the first boss of the game. I think because you can still cheese him like the Asylum Demon, I still feel like this is tutorial area. So we skull fuck him and then move on. Now we get to meet the most memed and quoted Souls NPC, Solaire of Astora. This jolly fellow not only introduces us to the summon mechanic of the game, he wants to find his son. No, not that kind of son. That kind of son. Wait, that doesn't really help clarify, does it? No, he actually just wants to find his own literal son, and if we don't do some very convoluted bullshit, he will turn into a bug man and attack us. This game is weird. Dark Souls 1 has an issue with NPC quest lines, though most of the time it's just finding and talking to them in different areas to progress their quest lines. One misstep here will cut you off from finishing a quest. And some NPCs have so many hidden mechanics. Like, one NPC will join you to fight a bunch of enemies, but depending on how much health he loses during this fight will predetermine the reward and ending of his questline, like with the Onion Knight. Now that's kind of ridiculous. More often than not, it will end in a tragedy. I spent hours on this playthrough helping the funny fat guy and his daughter, and they just fight and she kills him.
My father, always hollow man, has been subdued. He will cause no more trouble. It's finally over.
Worth it, I guess? But we'll dive into Solaire's a little bit later on. The next boss is the Gargoyles, and this is, to me, the first actual boss of the game. And it's a Miyazaki classic. It's a 2v1 boss fight. And with how much more clunkier Dark Souls 1 is to the other titles, it can be pretty annoying. I think you're supposed to go into this fight with the intention of trying out the summoning system, as you can bring in Solaire, an NPC, to help you in the fight, or a bunch of other actual players. And I guess doing this just even the odds against the two gargoyles. Going in solo, it becomes more of a chess match, waiting for the RNG movesets to line up between the two so you can attack. After defeating them and taking a souvenir, why not? We ring the first of 2 bells to proceed the story. And I love that while you play the game, you can hear other actual players getting to this point in the game. Every time you hear the bell, and it's not you doing it, that was another player. Coding that must have been a nightmare, but that is such a fine detail, and I loved it. It's so good. Doing this one thing doesn't change the world at all, but it makes it feel so much bigger and more lived in. It's really, really cool. And I don't think any other games at the time did something like this. Now the next destination is the second bell in Blight Town, but before you blow all your newfound souls on a few levels, I'd like to talk to this blacksmith and drop a bag with him to acquire an item. This will allow us access to a new area, and it is a bit expensive, 20 Gs, but don't worry, you can get these back pretty easily by fighting the enemies in this new area. Or, not saying I would, you could just glitch them. Probably the best soul farm in the game. It's also here where you can join a cat covenant that has you invading unexpected players doing the exact same thing we did to get to where we are now. It seems a bit unfair, but okay, I'll do it once at least. But the better reason for joining this cult is to kill your fellow covenant employees, because if you do it to this ninja, you get a funny roll ring. It looks incredibly dumb, don't get me wrong, but once you wear it, you will never go back to the standard dodge roll in this game. Not only is it faster, but it has slightly more iframes and will cover more distance than the best standard roll. I said Havel's ring was the second best ring. This is the best ring. This will not come off for the rest of the playthrough. All right, going through the Undead Berg a little bit more, we get to the Capra Demon. Now, this guy is not that much of a problem, but his goddamn pet dogs are so annoying. I don't know if it's just because I'm running a scythe, but my attacks don't come off fast enough, so I get staggered so hard by these stupid dogs. It just makes it such a hard time, and the arena is so small, you can't get away. But anyway, defeating him gives us a key to move down into the sewers, where we meet the Gaping Dragon. I swear, doesn't gaping mean something else on the internet? Oh dear God, don't look that up. I'll never look at this boss the same. Another boss where the meta comes into play, just circle around him and go for his butt. Super easy boss. After taking another souvenir from this guy, now we can keep heading down the sewers through this door to head to Blight Town, but I prefer to use the back door to Blight Town. Using the master key in Anor Londo, we can actually open up the back door to Blight Town, and this is a much easier way to get to the area. Now this area in the original title, when the game first launched, was Lag City. It was almost unbearable with the frame rate hitting so low and the constant poison debuff. It was the reason why everyone hated this biome and why there's always a joke about a swamp and poison area in Miyazaki's games. Honestly, in the remastered version running on a PC, it's not a problem. I feel like the issue with this area was mainly the frame rate. But using the shortcut, we can head pretty much straight to the next boss, Quelaag. The Y-boner is strong with this one. Unfortunately, we deal with her pretty much more of the same. Like I said, it's a meta for a reason. Just dodge the attacks, go for the butt. Okay, I want to take a second to discuss the boss fights as a whole here. So Dark Souls 1 is renowned for being difficult, and the boss fights are a major part of that. And to be fair, some of them are. We'll get to that. But this is the blueprint for most of the successful encounters you'll have with the bosses. You will spend most of your time knee-deep in these boss models' ass parts. And, well, to be honest, that explains a lot for the community. Now, that's mainly a criticism for this game, as I know later on in the franchise, they do get a lot better and a bit flashier and more gimmicky, but in Dark Souls 1, it tends to just be a big dude with a big sword. And you can't really blame him, it's the first title really that popped off, and they do have a few unique bosses. But I just thought it was worth bringing up as it just become quite a standard part of the game, and honestly, if it wasn't for the lore connecting these bosses so deeply to the world you're exploring, they would become super forgettable. Now, I might be alone on this for, and I'm sorry if it comes across wrong, but it's something I noticed playing this game again after so many years, so I thought it was worth bringing up. Anyway, with her defeated, we can ring the second bell, and this will grant us access to Sen's fortress. But first, there is another disgusting, horrible, cute spider thing behind this invisible wall. We need to join her covenant and offer her 30 humanity to open a door much later on to the lost Izalith. This will be needed for Solaire's questline for some reason. That's not everything though. If you join the covenant, you can get a few spells from this egg guy, but you need to hit one of his brothers first and get infected. Then wait about 20 minutes to then become an egg. Okay, doing that means the racist egg person will now sell us stuff, as well as a way to cure our, can I say deformity? Am I gonna get cancelled for that? Alright, Sen's Fortress is basically a Gmod death run, filled to the brim of these snake people. Okay guys, hear me out. The enemies aren't so bad here, but there are so many traps to deal with, be it hidden crossbows, giant blades, balls. But hey, look, at least there's treasure. Oh God, why? Well, I guess now I'll be hitting every single chest I come across. I love PTSD. If you're running through this area and having an issue, you really need to make sure you tap this secret bonfire. It's so useful, and it will really help when it comes up to the boss. The boss itself is a giant iron guy. The iron giant, I could have made a joke here. And do I have to keep explaining it? You know how to defeat him. You literally just have to dodge him and go for his butt. Though it does seem like his health bar is quite huge. My damage is not quite there. Maybe it's just the insane armor he's got. It took a while. I kind of got a bit bored during this boss fight. Defeating him gives us an express ticket to Anor Londo.
It's time to go to heaven, my child.
Stop it, what are you doing?
Stop it, don't
Stop it,
fight.
cut it out,
Don't
help.
stop. Come on, Zach, let's go to heaven. Wait.
This place looks so good. Chills, guys. Literal chills. Anor Londo looks so warm and divine. It's such a nice set piece. But enjoy this moment because this place is out to get you. And as soon as you meet these archers, you are going to hate this area as much as I do. These Black Knight archers have been put here specifically to ruin your day. Hey guys, I just need to get to... Excuse me, sir. Just let me budge past. I'm just gonna... Get the fuck out of my way! Oh, hey, Solaire. That's really the only issue in this area. Then we get to the boss fight. Orestein and Smo, the tag team that everyone talks about. And these boys have their bases covered. Smo is the bigger, slower, heavy attacker, and Orestein is the more agile, lower damage dealer, but he has a bit of a lightning argument. Going in solo, I recommend trying to keep these two well apart, and that's easier said than done. But unfortunately, fighting them both at the same time is not the one, Chief. They are going to destroy you. But on the flip side, the way I try to do it is keep them separate, like I said. Unfortunately, it means the gameplay tends to look like this.
Why are you
you running? Why are you running?
Orestein, please, can you just charge me already? Jesus Christ. Once one is defeated, the other one will check to make sure the death debuff is permanent. And then absorb the other's power. Dude, I really hope he was dead. I think it can go both ways, but most of the time it tends to be Smo that I end up dealing with last. And his moveset doesn't change too much, he just now gets the lightning powers that Orestein had. It's a long boss fight and it can be really tough, but the reward is amazing. This is the best video game. Not that this needs to get any better, but Guyinthetie will also give us the Lord Vessel. This allows us to not only open the way to the final boss, but gives us the ability to teleport around the world instead of walking everywhere. This is amazing. I am so glad this became a staple in the series and it's just a standard ability later on. Unfortunately, in Dark Souls 1, they're a bit more stingy about where you can teleport. You can't teleport to every single bonfire. It's only a select few, and I don't understand why. Later games, it's just if you sit at a bonfire, you can go back to that bonfire, no issue. But that's not where the downsides stop, unfortunately. This is where things get a little crappy for Dark Souls 1. Dark Souls 1 is an absolute joy to play, but honestly, once you beat Orestein and Smo, the devs kind of just, I don't know, give up. The game gets a little meh from this point forward. With the Lord Vessel, we can now go and collect these boss souls. From Seath to Scaleless, Brave Lord Nito, the Bed of Chaos. I really don't want to deal with this. Oh. And the Four Kings. So we will be running around the map Pokemon style, catching these boss souls, ready to fight the big bad. And it's not that fun, if I'm honest. I know there's hundreds of content creators that have talked about the last half of this game being boring. And I wouldn't say boring, it's just a bit meh. The first half, everything felt grand. Every step forward felt like you were progressing. Once you get the Lord Vessel, it does kind of feel like the game's quiet quitting. It just kind of stops trying too hard. But we do have a few things to knock out before we do that. Unfortunately, turns out Guyinthetie just wasn't that into us. But that's because she was in fact never actually here. This was a fake version crafted by the Dark Sun Gwendolyn.
Thou that tarnisheth the Godmother's image, I am Gwendolyn. And thy transgression shall not go unpunished. Thou shalt perish in the twilight of Anor Londo.
Ha! I knew they were fake. I will not take this disrespect sitting down, so we head down below Anor Londo to mess up this femboy. I like the fact that this effect here isn't a cool coding trick or anything. They literally just stretch the hallway very far, so if you take too long in this boss fight, you can actually get to the end of the hallway. Now this boss is essentially just a how well can you dodge fight. It's pretty easy until he does these orbs. For this, I would recommend jumping behind a pillar just so you don't take any damage. Also, be careful, if you kill the Firekeeper that tries to attack you on the way to this boss fight, and you die during it, you will spawn all the way back at the start of Anor Londo and have to go through this whole area just to get back to the boss fight. It is so infuriating. When it first happened, I thought it was actually like a bug, but it turns out this is actually programmed in. Nice. Man, I miss the steak of Maracas. Next up is the Painted World, which you can access by heading back to the Undead Asylum and picking up this doll for some reason. Both these areas are optional, and this one is pretty cool because there's snow. This place is essentially a dumpster where Anor Londo throws all of its trash. That includes these gross hollows, some very lanky birds with surprisingly good butts, and the worst trash, furries. The area is pretty short, and once we get up to the boss, we can actually just leave without fighting this half-dragon beauty.
Thou must returneth whence thou came. This land is peaceful, its inhabitants kind.
Okay, first off, if that's the case, why are you literally holding a weapon right now? And also, second, why the fuck has everything been trying to kill me since I entered this place? Anyway, Must Breed Priscilla is a gimmick boss, and she just kind of goes invisible. But if you tap into your inner Miyazaki and look for her feet, you can work out where she is. Again, it's a gimmick boss, but I don't think I've played a game that's done something like this. It's really interesting. With her defeated, we can now leave this place. Now, before you have a go at me for fighting her, because there was a way we could have not defeated her, first off, it's Dark Souls. If there's a boss, I'm gonna fight the boss. And second, I wanted a bigger scythe. You see, with her boss soul, you can create the Life Hunt scythe, which is what she was using. It's pretty cool. It does insane damage and way more bleed than the Great Scythe ever did. The caveat to this is that it will inflict bleed on the user with every swing. Now, this probably doesn't sound like a good trade-off, but trust me, with the Blood Shield and the Blood Bite Ring increasing my bleed resistance, it actually isn't too much of an issue. With this build, I actually only gave myself bleed once, and that was fighting the 4 Kings, and because that's a damage check boss, it was gonna happen regardless. With a new weapon in hand, I think it's time we take on the DLC, which is a very simple process. First, you have to kill the Hydra in Darkroot Basin, then go to the Duke's Archives to kill this random golem for absolutely no reason that drops a pendant. Wonder what that's used for anyway. Then we go back to where we killed the Hydra and coast the edge of the lake, trying to avoid the bottomless pit because this lake is not very shallow. What feels like is a glitch going around this area gets us to another golem which we fight, and a lady falls out. That's pretty random. She pieces out, so now we have to exit the game or go back to a bonfire and then re-enter this area, and a portal will be here where a big hand will pull you in. Yeah. Simple. How do people figure this shit out without a guide? Anyway, welcome to Ulasil. Several years in the past. Right out the gate, we have a skill check with a boss, just to make sure we're up for the challenge of defeating this area. It's not too difficult. This leads us into a big forest where a bunch of scarecrows attack us, and there's nothing much else, to be honest. It's kind of a bland area, except this dragon. It's so fucking cool, man. Further down the area, we meet a fellow guy who got transported out of his time into Ulasil, and this was obviously a major hint to Bloodborne, right? Next to the Bloodborne guy is Artorias, who is my favorite designed boss. He just looks so cool. His fight can be pretty mental as well. He has some insane mobility and can dish out a lot of damage. Halfway through the fight, he can also charge up his power level to become even more of a threat and even more aggressive. I recommend taking a bow into this fight, as if you pull off a headshot while he's charging up, it will actually stagger him out of the animation, skipping that phase until he tries it again. It is super helpful for this boss fight. Lore-wise, I love this boss fight too. I love the idea that in the present, Artorias is revered as the Abyss Walker, the guy who went over to Ulasil and saved the day, when in actual reality, he came over here and got a big fat L. Don't meet your heroes, kids. But if Artorias didn't kill the big bad here, then who saved Ulasil? If you defeat him, he will then have a groupie here that kind of sits at his grave. I found it kind of funny rocking Artorias' outfit, walking past her, going towards a boss fight later on. That was really difficult. Like, imagine yourself, you're sitting at the grave of like this person that you loved so much, and someone wearing his actual entire outfit just keeps running past you. If you talk to her, she'll ask us to give his soul back, so I just told her ass to sit down.
You humans, my dear.
Going deeper into Ulasil, we can actually find the best humanity farm in the game. And these spirits are so creepy to look at. Such a cool area. Now, before we head to the boss, there is actually a secret area that we can go to following this cat. The cat will actually lead us to a younger version of Sif the Great Grey Wolf, who was Artorias' companion, who went to Ulasil to help fight the darkness. He's kind of getting beaten up by a couple of these spirits, so we save him, and now we can summon Sif for the boss fight coming up. And that boss fight is a doozy. Manus is the hardest fight in the entire game. He is pure aggression. And don't even get me started on this combo. If even one of these hits connect with you, you might as well put the controller down because you're going back to a bonfire. Like I said, you can summon Sif for this fight, but why would you? Honestly, Sif doesn't do anything. He barely even takes aggro. Hey Sif, you want to help me out, buddy? Sif, can you come? What are you doing? Sif, please help me. And his second phase, man, the BS spellcasting goes hard in this boss fight. You have to pray that you have perfect timing on these spells to dodge them or tank the hits, because these hit hard. I know you can get an item that will help you deflect the magic spells, but from what I hear, the timing on that is really tight. You're better off learning to dodge the hits, honestly. It took me so many attempts to beat this guy. I used up all of my humanity just summoning Sif for each fight. Dude, this boss is so difficult. And I'm getting invaded. Awesome. That was my last humanity. Cool. So in this boss fight, I relied quite heavily on the Dark Root Ring for this run. Thanks to the iframes and the speed of the dodge, I was able to avoid most of the bullshit hits. And whenever I could see that he was going to do the combo attack, I was able to get away far enough so he didn't actually destroy me in one hit. Killing Manus does end up freeing the princess. But unfortunately, there's no one here, so... Alright, I'm gonna go back to my timeline now. Alright, so it's boss rush time. First up on the list is Sif the Scaleless. He is a dragon that betrayed his own kind because he got bullied for not having cool scales. What a nerd. The first time you meet him, he'll be impossible to fight, so you have to straight up die to continue this area. It's kind of annoying, but you can equip a ring of sacrifice so you don't lose anything in this process. So I recommend doing that. Once you climb down into the crystal cave, he will rush down and stop you from destroying his immortality stick. Okay. Just be careful. You can actually bring in enemies from the area into this fight. What are you doing here? Next up on our list is Sif the Great Grey Wolf. Yep, that Grey Wolf. Sif isn't actually a boss soul we require, but we do have to defeat him as he's guarding a ring we need to access one. Now, you can do this fight very early on, essentially as soon as you get Otoris' seal from the blacksmith. But because we did this after doing the DLC, we get a slightly different cutscene where Sif actually remembers us and lets out a whimper while we try to pet him. I'm almost there, just a little closer. Must boop. Nose. I love this interaction, as the base cutscene is just him aggressively protecting the grave like all other bosses. He sees us, he gets pissed, we fight. But here Sif is far more sad about having to fight us. The downside is, unfortunately for him, because I've left this fight so late in the game, I kind of dunk on Sif and I feel bad about it. And the devs knew this. Whoever decided to program a hurt state for Sif, you are a fucking monster. No other boss in this game has a "oh, you've hurt me" state, except Sif. What the fuck? I don't want to finish this fight. Sif, man, just give me the ring, bro. He's not even hitting me, man. Sif, this is hurting me more than it's hurting you, I promise. What a terrible day for rain. Anyway, next is the Bed of Chaos. But first, remember like 20 minutes ago in this video, I mentioned a shortcut to save Solaire? Well, that's just before a boss fight with another big-ass demon. Honestly, I need to discuss this. We fight this guy like 4 times in this game. I feel like the devs were really proud of the detail they put on this guy's ass. Anyway, you can open this door here, and if you kill the bugs that are just randomly walking around here, we save Solaire's life. At least physically. Mentally, he seems not too good.
Was it all a lie? Have I done this all for nothing? Oh, my dear son. What now? What should I do? My son. My dear, dear son.
It's alright, buddy. I'll buy you a nightlight or something. With Solaire saved, we head to the Lost Izalith, and let's be honest, the devs just copy and pasted the same butt model everywhere. This is so stupid. And to top it off, the Bed of Chaos is the boss here, and oh my god, I don't. This boss, in theory, doesn't sound too bad. There's 3 points you have to hit once and he is defeated. That sounds pretty good. But after breaking the first thing, a few issues arise. Now you have to dodge this Groot-looking motherfucker in his big-ass hands while he tries to just gently brush you into a bottomless pit. And the first time you do this, you can't even see the pits. So unless you have this place memorized, you're more than likely going to get brushed into one of these holes. And you have to run away from the boss, so you can't see his movements. So more than likely, you're just going to get a random hand come out of nowhere and knock you into a hole. This boss must make the no-death run enthusiasts so nervous. You're not fighting a boss, you're fighting RNG. Jesus, finally. Oh my god. I think I died to this Bed of Chaos more than I did Manus. Alright, so next is Nito. He needs a better name. Oh boy, I hope the next boss is more Nito than the Bed. Oh my god. So we head down to the catacombs and drive by Pinwheel. Honestly, probably the coolest boss lore-wise, but the easiest fight in game. He's 3 people fused together, a man, a wife, and their child. It's kind of fucked up. I love it. Thankfully, we saved Solaire from the weird light bug, so we now have it ourselves, so I use this in the catacombs so it's not so dark. Here we meet Patches, who sucker punches us. After literally just using a ladder right next to where he knocked us into the hole, we return the favor. Alright, Nito is a cool fight, but he has backup. First off, do not go to the back of the arena. This will make the boss 10 times harder. The big skeletons will stay out of your way if you don't go into their territory. I recommend fighting Nito at the entrance of the boss fight, where you only have to deal with a couple of small skeletons, and I would use Nito to take these mobs out, as he will actually damage them when he attacks. Wait for him to do this, and then when it's just the 2 of you, do some damage. Honestly, the boss is kind of a breeze. He has one attack that you have to listen to the audio cues to dodge, because he'll send his sword through the ground, but that's probably the only issue I have. Alright, lastly is the 4 Kings in Anor Londo. Now this is a damage check boss, as more kings will spawn after a certain amount of time. So you need to take out the previous king before the next one spawns in. It's not too difficult, but you do have to do quite a few hits to get these life bars down. And this is where I actually gave myself bleed using the life hunt scythe. It wasn't too bad, it just meant I had to use up my Estus to heal up the damage. It didn't kill me, which is good. I still think the trade-off for the amount of damage I output towards the bleed I intake is worth using it. Now with the boss souls collected, we can head off to the final boss, Gwyn. And though this area is just a straight shot to the boss fight, it's pretty awesome to look at. Everything is burned, it's destroyed. There's only a few of Gwyn's loyal knights patrolling the area. It's very foreboding, I like it. Thanks to doing Solaire's questline, he will actually be here as a summon for the final boss fight with Gwyn. Unfortunately, the boss fight with Gwyn is a joke and is super easy. You do not need to summon anything for this boss fight, but I decided to summon the Sun Bro just to let him have the glory of killing the guy responsible for the world being the way it is currently.
Very good.
After, of course, asserting my own dominance on the guy. Get wrecked, Gwyn. Ironically, letting Solaire take the final hit I still decide to plunge the world into darkness. This guy really is not getting a sun. As obviously keeping the world on life support, it wasn't working, and though some would say this is the bad ending to the game by walking away from the bonfire, I actually think this is the good one. Not all good things can last forever, and we could already see by keeping the world alive in the same methods that Gwyn was doing was making more things fuck up. I mean, look at Ulasil. The darkness was literally taking over far more aggressively than if we just turn the light switch off. We leave and join up with the funny moustache creatures and share one more final terrifying grin to end the game on. And that's Dark Souls 1. An absolute stellar game for the first half. And then the game kind of sits at a lukewarm temp for the rest of the game, to a very incredibly underwhelming final boss. Now, I loved the game, and I know that's purely down to nostalgia, as it was still kind of a new concept for these games at the time. But I do think other games have done this far better, and I even think to an extent Dark Souls 2 is a better Dark Souls game. That's gonna piss off so many people, I'm so sorry. Like I said, I loved this game, but whenever I talk to people who have played this game, I will say, yeah, it's my favorite game. I love it so much. If someone hasn't played Dark Souls 1, I wouldn't recommend it. I know that my taste and my appreciation for this game is very nostalgia based, and I can see it has so many flaws. So was it really that good? Yeah, but also no. Dude, I'm really bad at this. It helped jumpstart a whole subgenre of games that a lot of us as a community have come to love. But if you were to look at this game on its own, and its basic model, like back to when it first dropped, how buggy it was, the hit detection being wonky, questlines just straight up not working, I'm honestly surprised this game got so much love. And I'm thankful for it, but it's not a well-crafted game. And I know that's kind of a weird take. Like, I've sat here and complimented this game the entire video, but looking at it from like a fence-sitting perspective, like trying to take my own biases away, I feel like the faults of this game and the issues do outweigh the storytelling and the lore. Like, those are great, don't get me wrong, but the gameplay we loved so much for its difficulty wasn't made to be difficult. I think it was just clunky, which we kind of just took as a difficulty. I don't know, it's really interesting to look at. After playing games like Elden Ring, where the difficulty is difficult and it doesn't feel like it's broken, going back to Dark Souls 1, the game isn't that hard. It's just the funkiness of the game design and engine that tends to throw you off. Most of the bosses can be dealt the same way, just by going for the butthole. So like I said, it's a title that I love so dearly, but really struggle to recommend for anyone to play, especially if they come from the newer titles in the franchise. I just feel like the magic is really hard to replicate if you experience these titles in reverse. It's kind of a had to be there situation. The game is clunky, the game has massive flaws, but the world building is so amazing, and some ideas in this game are so ahead of its time, and the community feel from a game that is so lonely is mental. As a community, we are together. We are fighting these bosses together. There's messages everywhere telling you secrets and hints. And yet the overall atmosphere is very foreboding and depressing. And like I said, not many titles can get that. So I hope you've enjoyed this video. As always, I would love to give a major shout out to my patrons for supporting the channel. First off, I want to give a massive shout out to The Shane209, Pitstab, and Ali Tato. Thank you guys so much. You are the slowly growing darkness inside my soul. Sorry this video took so long to get out. I actually decided to go outside for once and do some gardening and ended up absolutely obliterating my back. This grass everyone says to touch, very overrated, don't do it. So with that said, I'm going to take a crap ton of painkillers and I'll see you in the next video. Tie out, peace.